Now, this is not a far-fetched scenario. This is a frightening new reality of flying. You feel safe while the plane is on the ground, but you may not be. Tonight you will hear actual control tower tapes of runway crashes and near misses. And Arnold Diaz puts you in the cockpit so you can experience firsthand the confusion that can lead to these deadly encounters.
You may be one of the 60 million Americans who get on board our nation's airlines each year. As you look out the window at all the other planes waiting for takeoff and landing, you probably assume everything's under control, that the planes won't get in each other's way. That's what Paula Garavaglia thought.
It was a nice flight, very easygoing, good crew, and very uneventful.
The U.S. Air flight that Paula and 88 others were on in 1991 was about to land in Los Angeles, unaware that, as this recreation shows, another plane was on the very same runway that night, waiting to take off.
As we were approaching the runway for what we thought was a smooth landing, there was a thump and then what sounded like, as a result of that thump, an explosion.
The U.S. Air jet crashed into the waiting SkyWest commuter plane. Both skidded off the runway and plowed into an unoccupied fire station, bursting into flames.
Okay, we just had 737 land blow up. We went up in flames. He's off the runway right now.
People were panicking, and we knew we were in danger. It constantly got thicker and thicker, darker and darker inside the cabin. And I thought that I was going to die.
34 passengers did die in the accident, later blamed on problems with the air traffic control system. And now experts fear more people will die in runway crashes because the number of near collisions, called runway incursions, has increased dramatically.
Runway incursions are the #1 aviation safety problem in the United States of America.
The National Transportation Safety Board's Jim Hall says there were 322 runway incursions last year, a 75% increase in just the past 7 years.
This situation, if it's not addressed, it's not a subject of if there's going to be another accident. It's when there's going to be another accident.
There was almost one in Chicago last year. An Air China flight mistakenly taxied toward an active runway, not realizing that a Korean air jet was barreling down the same tarmac. The air traffic controller screamed into the radio. Stop! But it was too late to abort takeoff, and the Korean air jet, with 379 people on board, missed the Air China plane by just 50 feet. Some say the situation's become so bad, the most hazardous part of any flight may be when it's on the ground. Many pilots and air traffic controllers agree that the system that's supposed to keep planes out of each other's way is dangerously out of date and overloaded.
All the ingredients are there for the runway incursions to probably increase on a regular basis.
Veteran air traffic controller Barrett Burns says many airports are handling far more flights than they were designed for, resulting in confusion on the ground.
Every day, planes or other vehicles are out of place on the runways?
Absolutely. It happens every day. Most of your major airports down to your smaller regional airports.
Okay, Charlie 3.
At times, he says, controllers are directing more than 50 planes at once, taxiing on the ground, often across active runways. It can be confusing for controllers and pilots.
It is pretty easy, unfortunately, for a pilot to make a mistake taxiing around because we've got so many things to do and to think about.
Transponder is on.
We got a view of the problem from the cockpit when we flew with John Nance, an experienced commercial pilot and ABC's aviation analyst. Pilots are busy going through their instrument checklists and studying maps.
Traffic in sight, 2604.
At the same time, they're listening for crucial radio instructions from the tower.
842, maintain 3000, wind 070.
In your ear, you've got this steady stream of verbalization, usually at high speed, with an incredible amount of information, and you've got to monitor every bit of it.
Contact ground on 120.35.
The radio system is the lifeline between pilots and controllers, but many agree it's woefully outdated.
We have 1960s technology in our radio equipment. Third world nations have better, air traffic control equipment than we do.
Final for runway 24 right.
The radio allows just one person at a time to speak, and consequently, says Burns, can become jammed with pilots and controllers trying to speak at the same time, leading to missed communications.
If I shout out an instruction and somebody else is transmitting on a frequency, that pilot's never going to hear my instruction.
Does that happen? A lot of crosstalk and overlapping?
Oh, absolutely.
So you have to repeat yourself?
Many, many times.
Adding to the problem, he says, are the large number of foreign pilots who don't speak English well, even though it's aviation's official language.
There's a lot of times that I have absolutely no idea what that pilot is saying to me, and vice versa. I'm sure he has absolutely no idea what I'm saying.
Try to make sense of this conversation between a JFK air traffic controller and a pilot for Air China requesting clearance to taxi.
Now we standing by with the cross sector ATC.
All right, sir. I don't understand. If you understand.
We're in waiting here. It's on 010.
Oh, wow. You know what, sir? Do you have somebody that speaks English on board?
All you have to do is certify on one piece of paper by checking something that you can never be legally sanctioned for that says, yes, my pilot can speak English. There are no tests, there are no certification.
Even subtle language differences can lead to confusion. Listen as a controller at JFK tells an Air France pilot last June to hold short, which in aviation language means stop, do not cross the active runway.
Just taxi straight ahead on Juliet. Straight ahead on Juliet and all short 2 to right.
But the pilot misunderstands. He repeats back, no hold short.
Okay, straight ahead on Juliet, no hold short on 2 to right.
The controller didn't pick up that mistake because no hold short is not standard aviation English. So the pilot began taxiing across the same runway that an Iceland Airjet loaded with passengers was roaring down, about to take off.
It looked like a collision about to happen.
There was no doubt in anybody's mind. I mean, we all thought that, we were just going to hear shearing metal.
Fortunately, the Iceland Air pilot was able to lift off quickly enough to miss the Air France jet, but not by more than 10 or 20 feet, says Burns.
I will never forget that situation. I hope to God I never see that situation again.
But even when pilots do understand the controller's instructions, it's sometimes difficult to carry them out, because it's not always clear where to taxi and where to stop.
200 Romeo Mike, Los Angeles, Tower, wind calm, runway 24 right to clear to land.
We flew into Los Angeles International. The tower radioed instructions for taxiing to our gate.
On to depart, United 2604. 0 Romeo Mike, hold short of runway 24 left and remain on this frequency.
Hold short 24 left on a Romeo Mike. That's the critical call right there.
2503 Los Angeles.
Hold short 24 left. If I cross that line, I could imperil 400 people.
Remember, the order to hold short means stop at the double yellow line and wait for permission to cross the runway.
So there's an active runway right in front of us. That's right. And all that's stopping us from going in there is this yellow line. That's correct. That's it. No red light, no stop sign. Nope.
Fortunately, it's a clear day, so it's easy to see the bright yellow lines. But in bad weather, it can be a different story. That's what led to a fatal accident in Detroit.
It's so foggy out here, we're completely stuck. It looks like we're on 21 center here. Northwest 1482, so you're on 21 center? I believe we are, we're not sure. Northwest 1482, Roger. If you're on 21 center, exit that runway immediately, sir.
The Northwest pilot had mistakenly taxied onto an active runway, and it was too late to get out of the way of another Northwest flight that was already speeding down that runway about to take off.
Northwest 299, boarding 3 center. There's an aircraft on the runway and we struck his right wing.
The wing of the speeding airplane actually sliced off the top of the other jet, and 8 people on board died, some of them decapitated. The official investigation cited not just the weather, but also deficiencies in the surface markings, signage, and lighting at the airport. That was 10 years ago, but pilots say problems like those still exist today at many airports.
Here's Sir Romeo Mike. Turn left on Echo, right on Sierra, and then taxi via the south route.
At LAX, finding the right taxiway wasn't easy because there are no markings painted on them. They're not required. And sometimes the signs are only on one side of the taxiway, which can be a problem, says
here's
Lynn.
Sierra. It's counterintuitive. The sign's on the left, the taxiway's on the right. It does have an arrow, but there's nothing on the concrete in front of me.
And LAX isn't the only airport pilots complain about. 2020 examined hundreds of reports filed anonymously by pilots around the country and found concerns like these. Miami, the signs and markings were misleading and confusing. Cleveland, the taxiways are very hard to understand. Denver, I did not see any hold lines or signage. Omaha, due to poor markings, we taxied onto the active.
It's not so much that we're having a drumbeat of accidents, it's that we will next year or 10 years from now if we don't get a handle on the small number of mistakes now.
Almost 10 years ago, the FAA said reducing runway incursions was a top priority. But, say critics, the agency has failed to meet its own deadlines, and there continue to be hundreds of near collisions each year.
As we sit here today, we are still waiting for systems that were promised to be in place years ago. We have got to do better in this area. We have got to fix what's wrong.
Arnold, what do we do? Take buses and trains?
Well, airline travel still is relatively safe, but the FAA recently told Congress that these near collisions on the ground are a top priority. Of course, they've said that before.
Yeah.
And they are years behind in developing this ground radar system that would sound an alarm when planes get too close to each other.
So something must be done.
Soon.
We're sounding an alarm.
Right.
Thank you, Arnold.
Okay.
And you can find out more about the story, and you can hear live control tower transmissions by visiting our website, abcnews.com. We'll be right back.